All right, we're interrupting our regular programming there to cross live to Kinshasa, DR Congo, where Pope Francis has just arrived. Let's look at those live images there. There's Pope Francis there with the Congolese Prime Minister, greeted there by a number of dignitaries, some children there as well. And as we look at those live images, I want to bring in France 24's Marc Perelman, who's looking at these scenes with me. And Marc, it's a highly symbolic moment, isn't it, for DR Congo?
Yes, absolutely. Pope John Paul II came in 1980 and then again in 1985. So it's been a long, long time waiting for the Congolese. It's a country in Africa where you have the most Catholics, around like 50 million or so. And the Pope was supposed to travel to DR Congo last July. It was canceled because of his knees. We see him on the wheelchair because he has aching knees. There are probably other security issues right now, but he did insist on making that trip to the DRC and then on to South Sudan. So obviously this is a very important moment, both for the Pope. Obviously it's his fifth trip to Africa, but it's the first time he goes to the DRC. It's obviously a very symbolic, important trip for DRC, given all the problems they have, the security problems, the economic problems, the social problems, and the political problems. So obviously it's not an easy trip for the Pope. Yes, he'll deliver messages of peace, probably warnings as well to the Congolese leadership. He's walking side by side, if I may use the expression, with the Congolese Prime Minister Jean-Michel Sama Lukonde. He'll then go to the presidential palace, the Palais de la Nation, for a meeting with President Felix Tshisekedi in a few minutes after the ceremony here.
And you touched on some of this already, Marc, but let's talk in a bit more detail about why it's so significant the Pope is here, particularly in terms of the security situation in DR Congo. There's that intense fighting in the east, in and around Goma. I mean, the Pope said he even considered going to Goma himself, but of course security officials told him it was far too dangerous. Nonetheless, though, it's significant he's there at all, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. The scheduled trip last July included Goma, but however, it was scrapped because of security reasons. Obviously, the situation around the capital of North Kivu, Goma, is extremely tense. You have fighting between the Congolese forces and the M23 rebel group. This has been going on, so there was no way the Pope could actually travel to Goma, and given all the climate there, it was nearly impossible. However, what he will do is he will meet a delegation of victims of this violence. They will travel across this huge country to Kinshasa to meet with the Pope and probably recount their suffering, what they've been going through, not only now, but for essentially the past 20 years, because Eastern Congo has seen its share of violence over the last 2 decades.
And later on this year, there's due to be elections in DR Congo, Marc. It's millions of Catholics in DR Congo. Talk to us a bit about how important the Catholic Church is when it comes to organising elections, perhaps what role the Pope may be able to play with a view to that on this trip.
Well, he'll obviously say something about the elections because it's true. People have to know that in DR Congo, the church leadership, especially they have a conference called the Senko. It is extremely involved in politics. That's rather unusual. Catholic institutions in most countries tend to stay away from politics. There, they have been historically very involved. When there was a transition from dictatorship under Mobutu to multi-party democracy in the early 1990s, they were instrumental. And even now, as we speak, voter registration for the election scheduled this December is in full swing, and the Catholic Church is supervising with the Protestant Church the enrollment and making sure that there is transparency in this key stage towards the election. And let's not forget, the last election was in 2018. the Catholic Church and the other churches in DRC had observers in the voting areas in nearly every bureau, and they counted the votes. And what they came up with is actually saying that the current president, Felix Tshisekedi, was not elected. It was his challenger, Martin Fayulu. This created a lot of tension. Eventually, the church was forced to back down, and they've already said that they plan to monitor not only the preparation for the upcoming election, but the actual monitoring of results of the election. So it's a deeply political Catholic church we have in the DRC. We see the Pope sitting side by side with the Archbishop of Kinshasa, Fridolin Ambongo, and Prime Minister Jean-Michel Samaloukonde is also talking, probably maybe helping with some translation. He's a very important person, the Archbishop of Kinshasa, very outspoken. He said in interviews to our sister radio RFI just a few days ago that he hoped, yes, this visit was important. It was symbolic towards healing the rift, the violence, and all it has caused in the country, but also delivering a message that the international community needs to take care about DRC and not only about Ukraine. Make sure that its presence there, essentially through a UN mission that's been there for years and years now, is more active in ensuring that the Congolese get a decent life, get decent elections, and get a decent future, because it's an extremely rich country. However, clearly the development has not been there, and that includes the current regime as well as the ones before.
All right, Marc Perelman, for now, thanks very much indeed. If you are just joining us here on France 24, a reminder of those live images you've been looking at there. That is Pope Francis, who within the last few minutes has touched down in Kinshasa, DR Congo, for a 6-day visit that will also take in South Sudan.